Hi, welcome to my latest video. Today I'm going to do a quick video looking at the upper and lower engine mounts, possibly called tie rods, steady bars, lots of names for the same thing. It's this bar here, which we've all seen over here on the UK driver's side of the engine, and this one which is hidden away underneath the engine. These are not really the engine mounts, okay? So the main engine mounts are kind of under there and underneath this huge block of aluminium here. These two things are sort of just extra steady things. They're not, well, this is like a rod, but this isn't a rod. This is just kind of like a sort of rubber block with a sort of aluminium bit in the middle of it. This is very, very similar. So you've got these two rubber arms here and then a sort of a bump stop. Same on this one here, you've got the two rubber arms and a bump stop. Both of them have a thin rubber sort of membrane. Okay, that's not really serving any purpose as far as engine movement is concerned. That is just literally left over from the manufacturing process. Okay, so it's just a thin skin of rubber where the two halves of the casting or injection moulding process is sort of done. It leaves that film. If you see that thing split or perished or with holes in, it's fine. You only need to worry when these bits here, possibly this one here, but mostly importantly these two arms here, if those are perished or split or broken off, then you do need to change the engine mounts. Okay, now this one here is very easy to have a look at. This one underneath the car, you need to really get the car up on ramps like I've done here, take off the sump guard and the engine under tray, engine under tray, sump guard if you've got one fitted like I have, and have a look. And it's sort of kind of underneath this one. Oddly, both of these are on the UK driver's side of the engine. Okay, so there's that one there, and then the other one is sort of here. I shall get underneath very quickly and see if we can see it. Okay, it is there, above this thing here, and these two bolt heads here are the bolts that go into that block, and then there is a kind of like two metal sort of arms that come out to this bolt here, which is this, which I don't know what that, whether it's not part of the it's sort of like the bearing carrier for the transfer boxes here, or PTU, power transfer unit, and then there's a sort of a shaft that kind of comes out, and there's a bearing that supports it there before it goes to the inboard CV joint and down the drive shaft. So it's that thing, it's that housing there that has got a bolt at the back of it which secures off to that mounting there. Now the problem with this one down here is it can get a little bit soaked in oil. Okay, now I've had a good old clean up under here, okay, with a rag, and when I first took the under tray off, it was a right mess. There was oil dripping off everywhere. I do have problems with oil leaks on this car. It's nearly 200,000 miles. It leaks a bit, okay? It's what Land Rovers do. So the engine mount rubber there will have had a lot of oil going over it over the years, and it's probably very perished, although I can't easily see it to check it really. The only real way to sort of check it is to try and move the engine around. Now when I did my glow plugs in the winter, I started the car up after priming the fuel filter, and the engine started, which was great, and then it ran for a few seconds, and then it almost cut out and then picked up again. And when it sort of almost died, it didn't half shake the engine around a bit. There was a lot of movement, and most of the movement looked sort of lower engine. Okay, so here's a quick bit of footage of that moment when the engine almost cut out, and you can see that it does move about quite a lot, and that's that's idling, okay, so that's not even being driven. So when I'm accelerating hard, the main engine mounts obviously kind of support the weight of the engine into the chassis or body of the car, but these mountings here, this sort of engine steady bar here and the one above, are really what sort of stops the engine kind of twisting along the sort of axis of the drive shaft. So you're trying to turn the wheels and it's going to exert a reactive force, okay, so whichever of Newton's laws that is. I think it's the first law. Every action has an opposite and equal reaction. Okay, so if you're trying to turn the wheels, it is going to also be trying to turn the engine the other way. Okay, and these bars are what stop that from happening, really. You don't really want things moving around loads here, because it's then going to sort of put strain on the prop shaft and all the other pipes and hoses and cables and everything that attach to the engine, really. Not to mention the exhaust system as well, which I think has a sort of a flexible kind of joint in it. But again, if you can avoid moving that around unnecessarily, then that's got to be a good thing. So, as well as changing both of these, what I'm going to do is look at stiffening them up. Okay, so you can actually get these inserts. These are made by PowerFlex. Bought these on eBay, about 30 to 35 pounds each. You only need one of these per mount. Okay, so it sort of almost looks like you'd need two of them, one from each side, but you don't. You only need one. I mean, it almost looks like you could actually cut these off and you could fit two, but that's not really how it's designed to be done. They go in there. You do need to make holes in the sort of casting rubber skin there that's sort of left over from the sort of manufacturing, and poke these bits through. They do yellow. Okay, so yellow is the sort of softer road version, so that's quite sort of flexy, and black, which is much stiffer, which is meant to be for race only. Okay, now you might be thinking, race, Freelander 2, really? Do they do that? Well, don't forget, these engine mounts are used on loads of other models of car as well, Volvos, possibly Fords, etc, etc. Okay, so these ones here actually say for a Volvo S80. Okay, so I'll put all these details at the bottom of the screen, but it's PFF 88-1030, Volvo S80 2007-2015 torque rod insert. So there's another name for it. You got engine steady, engine mount, tie bar, yeah, so torque rod. Okay, is that what this is? Another name for the same thing. Okay, but it's things that stop that torque reaction. Okay, so I suppose torque rod is actually quite a nice name for this, actually, because that's it's preventing that torque going sort of back up the drive shaft into the engine and turning the engine. It's not preventing the torque. The torque is going to be there, but it's stopping the engine from moving about when it experiences that torque. Okay, so we've got yellow, soft, black, stiff for that one, and then same again for the lower one here. Now these ones here don't mention Volvo. Okay, so it just says PFF 88-1130. So you've got 1030 to 1030 and 1130. Okay, so very similar numbers, and then they put a BLK after the black one. Okay, but these two don't mention Volvo, Ford or Land Rover or anything like that. They're just sort of generic kind of ones which probably fit lots of different models. And the Volvo S80 obviously uses this same mount as a Freelander 2. They do sort of share parts. Volvo, Ford, there's a lot of Volvo and Ford parts on the Freelander 2. Okay, so these go in somehow. It must go that way because you look at the shape of that and you've got the shape of that, so that goes in somehow. Bit of a tight fit actually into there, just going in, but I'd need to poke some holes through that sort of casting skin or injection moulding skin, whatever it is. And these also come with a big kind of like giant penny washer thing, which I'm guessing just sort of stops it wandering out once it's shoved in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the top one first, and I'll put that in. I'm not going to fit them without the stiffening inserts, because that's what I've got at the moment. The top one's fairly new on my car. It was put in there a couple of years ago, so I know how that feels. I will go straight for yellow. Okay, so I'm going to put yellow inserts in and then road test it and see what it's like. If it still feels like there's a bit of engine movement, then I'll go up to the black. But what I need to be very careful of is all those rattles and vibrations, and it's an old Land Rover, okay, so there's a lot of noises starting to come out of the dashboard. You hit a certain speed and things are rattling and vibrating, and that, and the speaker grills and the rear view mirror, and they're all starting to shake about and make really irritating rattling noises. If I put these black ones in, probably end up making that a lot worse, okay. And I have heard that it can be so bad that the steering wheel is actually shaking, okay, certainly when it's idling. So I don't want to go too mad with this. I'd like to see what the black ones are like, but I'll probably end up just compromising and going for the yellow. Pit lane Kitty's out here. She's going to help me do this. Okay, so I'm going to fit these now. I'm going to fit them with the yellow inserts. I'm not going to fit them without any inserts because I already know what that feels like. And I'll put the yellow ones in. We'll see if that is better, worse, shaking, vibrating, or just feeling stiffer and making the engine sort of feel more responsive and solid. Okay, so to remove this engine torque rod, steady bar, call it whatever it is relatively straightforward, but the tricky bit is you do have to kind of lift the coolant expansion bottle up out of the way. You don't need to disconnect the hose at the bottom of it, but you probably will need to undo these little black little tiny tubes, balancing tubes, okay. So they just kind of pop off, you just squeeze them and they come off. Might possibly need to remove the headlight to allow me to sort of get into those pipes. This bolt here allows the expansion bottle to be sort of lifted up out of the way, and then it's a case of undoing that bolt and that bolt. Both of those come backwards, okay, so that's why you need this expansion bottle out of the way first. Once those bolts are withdrawn, the mount just comes out. So pretty easy to do. I've done this one before. I've not done the lower one, which according to the Haynes manual is just as straightforward to do. I shall see when I come to that one. I'm going to do this one. I'm going to put the camera kind of sort of up here, or somewhere up here, because the car's up on the ramps, you see, so I can get into the underneath the car to do the lower one. So I'm a little bit higher at the moment than I would normally. It's probably easier to do this with the car on the ground, although you do need to get the car up in the air to do the other one. Right, let's get the camera on the tripod and then I'll start dealing with this. Okay, so just a little warning here, don't do this immediately after driving the car, okay, because you do need to disconnect these coolant pipes, and if the system is hot, pressurized, it could suddenly sort of overboil, and as you release the pressure, of course, the boiling point comes down as the pressure reduces, and a hot system could erupt into a big cloud of steam. I've actually done that, not on a Land Rover. I did that on a Mini years ago and severely scalded my arm. Okay, so this car has a screw thread cap. It's not one of those old bayonet caps, which is what I ended up sort of undoing, and it just exploded with a load of steam and caused me a lot of pain. Okay, but this one, you kind of get a bit of a warning if the system's pressurised, because you'll start undoing it and it'll start hissing and steam will come out. But I drove this car a few hours ago, so it's had a chance to cool down. Yeah, okay, so the coolant looks okay. It's pink in colour. Coolant on this car is the OAT, Organic Additive Technology antifreeze, that's sort of pink in colour rather than the bluey green stuff that a lot of cars use, or older cars use. Nowadays they tend to use this pink antifreeze instead of the old glycol based antifreeze. Right, so there's no pressure in that, which is good. So I'm going to put the cap back on, so I know now that it's safe to remove the little balancing pipes off the side of the expansion bottle. Let's just tighten that. It should hit usually just sort of hits an end. It's one of those caps where you think, there we go, it hits an end. Okay, so I'm going to try and remove these now. These are a bit fiddly to remove, and a pair of pliers. They're quite sharp plastic clips, sort of plastic kind of wings on them as well, which really do dig into your fingers. So a pair of pliers will help a lot. Right. Fiddly. There we go. Okay, so it's a case of pressing the sort of plastic ears or wings that stick out. To press those and wiggle it out. Okay, and it just kind of comes out. There's two of those. Very important to remember to refit those afterwards. There we go. Right, just sort of hook them up out the way if you can. Just a little bit of coolant sometimes dribbles out. They are just balancing pipes, they're just vent pipes, okay? They just let any steam and air out the top of the cooling system. Right, those are there. Now I need to undo this one here, which looks like a 10mm. It looks exactly the same as the other 10mm bolts dotted around. Okay, so this one here is 10mm, and these ones here I think are 15. Yeah, I'll be able to get that socket on properly once the expansion bottle's out of the way, but I'm pretty sure they're 15mm. Right, okay. Right, so there's one bolt here, and then on this side here there is a sort of clip thing. Now I will put a screenshot of that up on the screen now. It's sort of like a kind of a blade thing that it kind of slides down onto, so you need to I think it just literally just wiggles off. Come on. There we go. There we go. Right, now coolant is dribbling out of the little balance pipes. Okay, I don't know if it's coming out of the pipes themselves or Yeah, it is actually coming out of the pipes themselves. It's because I've lifted this up, you see. It's then putting the level of the coolant system is then higher, so it's then coming out of those pipes. Okay, so this should lift up. There's not a lot I can really do about that coolant leaking. All I can really do is try and put a cloth or something there. Right, okay, so coolant is dribbling out and had formed a fairly large puddle underneath the car, so I've just had to get a towel and mop that up. So the trick is, don't lift this higher than you need to. The higher you lift it up, the more coolant comes out of those little pipes. If you can hook them up somehow out of the way, then that will really help. Right, okay, so I've actually managed to use my headlight release rods to sort of hook those pipes up out of the way, lift them up, so that when this is lifted, it doesn't dribble coolant out. You don't need to lift this right up. Okay, it won't come up that far, it'll come up to about there. It's as high as it'll go. But all you need is to just lift it out of the way like that. Okay. So with this sort of rocked carefully out of the way, get in and undo this one. Now, when you're doing this, just mind this cable loom. There's a wiring loom here, okay, which could get damaged. So let's just try and loosen that one off. Okay, so that's that one loosening, and I've got to try and somehow get into this one here. Now you could get in there with a spanner, but the bolt still has to come all the way out. Okay, so you need to try and move the expansion bottle the other way somehow. Right, okay, that's that one undoing there. And I can probably do this by hand. Let's just lift that up out of the way. Makes it a little bit easier. Okay, there it is. It's very, very long. Very long. Okay, so that has to come all the way out so that you can get that up out. Once that is sort of loose, you can then remove the other one. Check. There's the other bolt. Not quite so long, but just as thick. Okay, 15mm socket on those. Those look like M10, I think. So now that those are out, this comes out totally. Okay, so there is the old top steady bar torque rod, and there's the new one. And this one here, you can see that sort of membrane is kind of split there. Okay, so that is not a reason for changing it. Okay, that will happen. That membrane is just where they manufactured them. The important thing on this one is that these arms here are in good condition. Okay, so there's no perishing, there's no splitting. Worst case, this centre aluminium block will just break free from the outer ring, and then you know you've got major problems then, as the engine is is really moving wildly. This one has been on the car for about 3 or 4 years, and yeah, it's a bit dusty, but it's perfectly good condition. So I will fit the new one, because these don't last that long, and this one I'll give a clean up and sell that on eBay or something like that, as just as a used good condition part. So what I'm going to do with this one, well, I need to get this into it somehow, and I need to figure out which side. I mean, this is actually symmetrical, okay, so it can go in the car either way. I can't see any indication. It's the same width all the way down. There's nothing that indicates sort of top or bottom or left or right. So the question is, which side does this kind of go in from? Does it matter? Probably not. I mean, looking at this, I think if that was like that, it can go in either way, I think. There's no washer with these ones on the top mount. It's literally those sort of metal bits sticking up there, which are sort of holding the stiffening insert in place. Okay. Now, if these work well, I might even buy another one and try and sort of actually fit one in from each side. It's technically not necessary, but I just think it would look better. I don't know if it will actually stiffen it better, but yeah, it would just be nice to have a kind of two-part in one from each side. Okay, so what I'm going to try and do now is just poke some holes through this membrane. Now let's have a look. Yeah, you see these ones here are kind of angled. I might have to cut that with a knife. Okay, I'll try and enlarge those holes that I've made, but hopefully when I shove that through, that should stretch that thin rubber and poke through. Okay, so there it is. I've pushed it in and it's gone flush with this face here, and where I made the 4 holes, these bits have just popped through that thin rubber. Okay, so I'm now going to refit this to the car. I'm going to fit it like that, okay, so that the yellow face is sort of facing the engine. I don't think it really matters which way it goes, but you can kind of see how this works now. It just adds a little bit of extra stiffening around this middle piece. Right, okay, so let's pop this one back in. It goes in like that. Now you'll notice actually that it's got a round hole at one end and an oblong hole at the other. You do need to sort of tighten this up so that it clamps, okay, so that isn't to allow the bolt to kind of move back and forth. It does need to be clamped solid, but it just gives you a little bit of extra room when you're assembling, just to sort of get that bolt in. Just going to put a little bit of copper grease on these bolts, just a tiny little bit, as if I do need to take them out again to fit the black inserts, then it will just be nice to know that they undo nice and easily. Right, okay, so lift this up out of the way. This end bolt in. Just enough room to do this. It is very tight. did see one video where someone took this tank completely out and disconnected the hose underneath. That isn't necessary. There you go. Right, let's get that in. Okay, so what you want to do here is just get this bolt loose. Okay, don't tighten this one until that one is tightened at the other end. Get this one in and finger tight, and then actually you do have to tighten it quite a bit in to get it out of the way of the expansion tank. You get this one in, come on, and tighten this one last, because that's the one in the oblong hole. Right, okay, that's in but not tight. Now I'm going to do this one and tighten this one fully up. Okay, because this is in the round hole. There's no adjustment on this one. Now, I don't know if there's a torque rating for this. If there is, I will look in the Haynes manual afterwards. If there is, I will put it at the bottom of the screen now. Okay, but I'm just going to do that up sort of tight by hand. Okay, so now that end is tight, this one in the oblong hole can be tightened up properly. Get these pipes on. Very important and easily forgotten. They actually don't need pliers to put back on. They just pop back in. You just push them on and make sure that the sort of barbs click over the little swaged end on the tank. There you go. You hear a good click when they're on. Right, so top engine steady is done, replaced with the yellow stiffener. I now need to do the one underneath the car. Okay, so this is a little bit more difficult to do purely because it's hidden away down underneath the engine, but it is still just a couple of bolts. Alright, so the sort of spanner rating I think in the Haynes manual was exactly the same. I think it was like a 2 spanner job or whatever they call it, 2 out of 5, i.e. it's suitable for the home mechanic with basic tools. So what I'm going to do is, before I mess around trying to put that into this, okay, and figuring out where these washer things go, I'm going to get under the car and I'm going to remove the old engine mount. Now it's going to be pretty mucky, I think, pretty oily. Okay, so I might stick some gloves on and remove that. I'll try and set the camera up underneath, or just sort of try and film what I'm doing, and yeah, and then we'll pull that up onto the bench and see how it compares. Okay, so what I need to do here is I need to remove this bolt here. I'm pretty sure that's got a captive nut at this end. Okay, so you literally just undo that and pull that bolt out, and then it's these 2 large ones here. This looks like a 15, these look bigger. I don't know if they're a 15 or not. I will get the socket and find out, but I reckon these are going to be pretty tight. Okay, and they're going to need a bar or something to loosen those off. Now, one thing to be aware of here, if you have just changed the top steady like I have, you will get coolant dripping off here into your face. Okay, so maybe just wait half an hour for all that coolant to kind of go somewhere and drip off or dry up. You can see where it's been running down here. This has actually got drips forming here. Yeah, I don't particularly want that in my eyes or anything, so I'm just going to kind of do a bit of mopping up and maybe just wait 15 minutes for any drips to kind of fall. Yeah, look, there's another one coming down. Okay, so that's just something to be aware of. Okay, so it might be better to do the lower mount first. At least you don't get coolant in your face. Okay, so these bolts here are 15mm as well. They looked bigger, but they're all 15mm, and these are, oh my god, oh, right, I've had to get me a great big long bar on that. They were tight, made a bit of a crack as they came loose, but they are now coming loose. Okay, I'm going to do this one here as well. Now there is actually another one up here, which I'm hoping I don't have to undo that one up there. I'm not sure. This one here, right, yeah, okay, that one's not so bad. Oh, come on. Problem is, you do it, and the whole engine is moving. Probably get a ratchet on this now. Ah, yes. Okay. Right, let's get the ratchet on and there we go. Right, that one's coming loose. And these are coming loose. Okay, good. Right, I'm going to undo those fully and see if it's possible to take the mount out with its brackety plate things attached. If not, I'll have to try and undo that middle bolt. It might be a good idea if I try and loosen that middle bolt now whilst the main bolts are still mostly in place. Okay, otherwise if I take all the other bolts off, it's going to be impossible to loosen that middle one. Right, okay, that's that bolt that was through here. Okay, through this bit of metal. And see if I can get these. No, that one's coming out. Okay, God, that's a big bolt. Right, that's going to need the ratchet on it. That's about to drop out. Right, there we go. Right, let's see now if the whole thing will come out. Yeah, I think it will. There we go. Look at that. Right. It's pretty grimy, but it's out. Okay, so I will put that onto the table now and we can have a closer look at it. Right. Well, I noticed something straight away. This arm here is broken off. Okay, so we compare against the new one, where that attaches there, it's broken. The whole thing is moving. Okay, that is why the bottom of my engine is moving around so much, and the one above is half cracked through. Okay, that is in a bad state. Look at that. That is flapping about. That one, that top one actually, is that crack now. I've realised actually goes all the way through. That's, yeah, awful. Well, it's not good that it's like that, but at least I've found something wrong that would explain why the engine is moving around so much. Okay, so this one, just this one on its own, will dramatically improve the feel of the engine. Putting this in as well will help it even further. Right, I've loosened this bolt off. Okay, so this middle one, I loosened that on the car, and it's a good idea to do that because it just makes it a little bit easier then to remove that bolt when it's completely free on the bench like this. Right, so I'm going to pull that out, and we'll see if that middle bit actually falls out, because I've got a feeling it will do. Right, let's remove this now. I'm just going to remember which way that goes in. So that's under the car like that, so the bolt goes from UK passenger side towards driver's side. Okay, right. It's pretty muddy and horrible. And that middle bit, look at that. I thought there was a good chance that would actually drop out on its own. I think a couple more months on the car and it would have done. Look at that. That is really bad. Totally broken away on one side and hanging by a thread on the other. Glad I decided to do this today. Okay, right, so nice, clean, brand new lower mount. I've cleaned up these brackets and the bolt. I'm going to be fitting this one, which needs these washers, but there's no instructions in the box. The black ones come with a little tube of grease. What's this? Silicone, PTFE silicone assembly grease. It's probably to stop squeaks and things. Yellow ones didn't seem to include any grease, so maybe they're soft enough to not need that. The question is, which side do I stick it in from? Probably that way. I'll have to punch through the little sort of membrane again, and then I'm guessing that just kind of sits over it to stop it walking back out. I don't know what this washer's for though. Yeah, that I think can only really go on this side. I don't know, I suppose it could go underneath that side, but it's, yeah, I'm going to put it in, because there's no instructions, I just have to guess on this. Okay, so I'm going to stick it in from that side. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's the right way round. Oh dear. Right, yes, so I've just checked under the car. The rear bolt, the bolts are the same I think, but the rear piece has a sort of standoff kind of platform under it. Okay, the front's actually got one as well, but it's a lot smaller, and then the back has that. So that is how it goes, okay, under the car. Okay, so these ear bits here, horns or whatever, point to the rear of the car, and then the brackets come away. Well, it'll be that one, won't it? Now that's got an arrow on it. They've actually got arrows on. Okay, so that probably points towards the front. So yeah, so that's correct. So that goes like that, arrow pointing towards the front. And the reason for those arrows are because that gets kind of thinner like that. Okay, it's a bit difficult to do it on the table here, but it goes like that. So I'm going to stick that in from this side with the washer underneath this metal plate hole there. Okay, there we go. I've pushed that in. So I poked 4 holes through that membrane. That's come through now. Those little sort of 4 rod things, and that is sitting perfectly around that inner chunk of metal. So now I need to get this washer out. So that one will go like so, to sort of just retain the thing, stop it walking itself out. Don't know about this. Doesn't seem necessary really. I think I know what it could be. If we're putting that in there, that bracket shifts slightly, so might need to put that washer underneath there to keep things evened up, so that the bracket doesn't sort of move at one end only. That's a possibility. I think that's how I'm going to assemble it. I don't see the need for putting that there. That just doesn't serve any purpose at all. It's a flanged bolt. So yeah, unless on the Volvo or something that is used for something, other Fords, etc. It's not necessary on this side. Yeah, well, if you know what that is for, leave a comment below and let me know. But I think really, I mean that's about 2mm thick. That's only about 1mm thick. I think that'll be absolutely fine. I think that'll be fine like that. There's no need to put a washer under the other end. Right, I'm going to reassemble this. Put it back under the car. Put a tiny bit of copper grease on the bolts and tighten everything up and go for a drive and see how it feels. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get this in position without the metal brackets on. When I removed it, it came out with the metal brackets on. I just want to get this loosely bolted in with the bolts up from underneath, and then I'm going to put the washer on the side and those metal things, and then do this bolt here last. Okay, so that is in with the bolts loose. I just want a little bit of movement in it while I fit those brackets on. These two bolts are both the same length, actually. They're the same length, and they're a similar length to this one that goes through the main sort of metal piece in the middle of the engine mount, but this one, whilst it sort of looks the same, it's same length and that, it's actually got a much longer non-threaded part. These here have a very short non-threaded part and they're mostly thread. That's how you tell the difference if you mix your bolts up. So I'm now going to fit this one through with the metal brackets and the washer. Okay, right, so you can see the washer just about there. Okay, underneath this, and that bolt is going through and into the other end of these. Now, I've observed the arrows pointing towards the front of the car, so that these are then the right spacing for this piece of metal here, okay? And then that's the final bolt, the shortest bolt, which goes through those, okay? So let me just get a bit of copper grease onto that one, and then pop that through. Now this is where it pays to just have everything a bit loose, because yeah, that's going in. I was a bit worried that things wouldn't sort of go in, because maybe the engine might sort of move or something as we remove the old mount, but that hasn't happened, luckily. So, right, let's just try and get this located. Now, it's a bit fiddly, so I'm just going to stop filming and I'm going to get things almost tightened and then start filming again. Okay, so I've managed to get that one located into that sort of captive nut thing there. It was a little bit fiddly getting it to go and start threading, but having these loosened off really helps. Okay, so you can just wiggle everything around until it kind of bites in, and then start tightening everything up and just kind of do it gradually, really, one by one, gradually torquing things up. I don't know the torque figures. There may be some. If there are some, I'll put them at the bottom of the screen now. I'll have to go and look in the Haynes manual, but my hands are pretty filthy, so I'll do that afterwards, and if necessary get the torque wrench out. But these yellow inserts probably won't be staying on for very long, because I'll be wanting to try the black ones very soon. Okay, that is it. Lower engine mount changed with yellow stiffening inserts, and the upper mount also changed with yellow stiffening inserts. Old lower engine mount, very poor condition, replacement much needed. Glad I've caught it now before that broke away completely. Okay, what I'm going to do now, tidy up the tools, get the car down off the ramp, go for a drive and see how that feels. Okay, so I've just got back from a quick test drive. The results are amazing, absolutely amazing. This and the lower mount now make the car feel like a new car again. I can't believe how different it feels. If I had to rate the modifications, the top 3 mods that I have done that make the car feel better, I would say remap, lift kit and these. Okay, so probably just fitting that new mount at the bottom drastically improved how the car feels, but putting the stiffeners in, it just feels really solid and strong and powerful. There's no hesitance. The hesitance pretty much went away when I did the swirl flaps, but it has now finally completely gone. Okay, so there's no hesitance at all. I think there was still a little bit of hesitance just due to the engine sort of moving as I go to change gear or accelerate. That's completely gone. The car feels really sort of powerful and smooth. There's no shake through the steering wheel, but you can feel a difference through the steering wheel. It just feels a bit more solid, and you just sort of more in touch with the car, really. There's no sort of sloppiness and kind of looseness, loose feeling to the driving. So it's really, really good, really pleased. The car is running like a new car again. I would highly recommend changing your engine mounts, and I'd highly recommend putting the yellow inserts in. Now I have got the race grade Black Ops inserts to try. I'm going to do that in a part 2, okay, because otherwise people have complained that my videos are too long. Alright, so I will bring this part 1 to a close, and then tomorrow evening I will redo everything all over again. I know how to do it now, so it shouldn't take long, and take out this, whack in the top one, which is that one, I think, pop that in instead of that, quickly nip back underneath and slot the black one in and just see how that feels. I have a feeling it's going to be too stiff and too much vibration. The only negative that I noticed on the test drive was there was a really annoying rattle from the it was actually from the rear view mirror housing, the sort of plastic that kind of clips around the rain sensor and all that kind of thing. That was just rattling quite badly. I've heard it rattle a few times before, but it was very, very noticeable now, so I'm going to have to sort of take that apart and glue it together or whatever I've got to do to stop it rattling. But that was the only negative, only thing that I noticed that sort of has got worse from fitting these. So with these, yeah, more rattles could become apparent. I've got to try these. Spent a lot of money buying these, so I'm going to fit them, and I'll do that in part 2 so you can see how those compare to the yellow ones, and then I'll decide which ones I want to stick with. If these are too extreme, I'll have to go back to the yellows, but at least we'll have a comparison between them. Right, that is it for part 1. Hope that video was useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.